Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. For today's video, I'm going to be showing you how we make our Enchilada Casserole recipe. This recipe is so easy and so good, and it quickly became one of our family favorite dinners. Also, continue watching to the very end if you would like to see our salsa recipe and how we make our guacamole. So you're going to want to cook your chicken first, and I cooked mine in this Instant Pot. I love this Instant Pot. We use it almost every day. It just makes things so much faster and makes cooking dinner so much easier. So first you're just going to put your chicken in whatever you're cooking it in. You can cook it in whatever, but I use the Instant Pot. I'm using 2 pounds, but you can use whatever feeds your family. This will yield 6 servings or over, so definitely cut the recipe down to the size that you need it. I like to add a little bit of oil to my chicken just so that it doesn't burn in the Instant Pot. I don't measure any of the seasonings that I put on the chicken, but I just briefly sprinkled a little bit of salt, a little bit of celery salt, onion powder, and cumin over the chicken breasts. I cooked mine for 30 minutes on the slow cook. So now I'm moving on to making our homemade Mexican rice. And I'm making 2 cups for our family. You'll definitely want to cut this down if you have a very small family. So you want to bring 2 cups of water to a boil in a pot. While you're waiting for that to boil, you're going to want to measure out 1 cup of rice, one teaspoon of chicken bouillon, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of celery salt. I don't always add the onion powder or the celery salt, but for today I decided to add it. So while I was waiting for my water to boil for the rice, I decided to quickly make up some guacamole from the avocados that we had. So here I am adding the rice to the water after it boiled, and you're just going to stir it until it comes right back to a boil. Turn it down to low and set the timer for 20 minutes. And that is it. It's so easy to make this Mexican rice, and it tastes so good. You can also add onions to the water if you would like to have the onions in there, or just go ahead and saute your onions beforehand and add them at the end. So I'm just scooping out my avocados here and putting them in this bowl. I'm also saving some of the pits because if you put them in the guacamole after it's all done, it does keep it from going brown as fast. And I just add salt and pepper to taste. And to finish it off, I add some of our homemade salsa. Now I'm pulling out our blender and just wiping it down, getting ready to make our homemade salsa. So this recipe is going to make about 4 quart-sized jars of salsa. So if your family is smaller, you might want to use the smaller cans of diced tomatoes, but I use the 128-ounce diced tomato can. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put your tomatoes into your blender. I fill it up about halfway and just do 2 batches. But if you have a smaller blender, you can do 4 batches and just cut everything in half. Next, we're going to add a can of Rotel. Typically I put garlic salt in, but on this day we did not happen to have garlic salt, so here I'm just Googling how to make homemade garlic salt. So you're going to want to put a teaspoon of garlic salt in. And you'll notice I'm putting onion powder in this. This recipe does not call for onion powder, but we did not happen to have onions on this day either, and so normally what you would do is put a half of an onion in, but on this day I just substituted onion powder. So for our family, we make a mild batch and a hot batch. Here I'm making the hot batch, so I am adding hot jalapenos. But if you want to make a mild batch, either just add less jalapenos or add the tamed jalapenos. Then add a tablespoon of lime juice, a teaspoon of cumin, and a teaspoon of sugar or agave nectar or whatever your family likes to use. You can also just leave out the sugar, but our recipe calls for sugar, so if you want to add it, just add whatever kind of sugar you would like to use. And then blend it up, and that is literally it for this recipe. It's so easy and the salsa is so good. I'll put the recipe in the description box below if you guys just want to read it. I know for me it's just much more simple to have the written form. So here I'm just labeling all of the jars so that I know which ones are mild and which ones are hot. So now my chicken was done from the Instant Pot, so I'm pulling that out, getting ready to cut it up so that I can add it to my casserole. So for the casserole filling, you're going to want one 8-ounce package of cream cheese, one cup of sour cream, and then I just added a little bit of salt, a little bit of ground cumin, and a little bit of onion powder just to taste. Next, you're going to want to add your rice. And then go ahead and cut your chicken up to add to the casserole. So then you're just going to add all of your chicken into the bowl with everything else. The hot rice and the hot chicken melts the cream cheese, so you don't have to set that out beforehand. Next, you're going to want to add a teaspoon of minced garlic. So now moving on to the enchilada sauce that we are going to top this with. You're going to want to start out by adding 3 tablespoons of oil into a pot. turn that on to medium heat and let it heat up. And if you guys are wondering why our burner covers do not match, it's only because the store that we found the turquoise ones at did not have 2 packages of it, but we do have 2 packages of it now, so everything is matching. You're going to want to add 1 tablespoon of flour or cornstarch. Cook this for about 30 seconds to a minute after it starts to bubble. After your 30 seconds to a minute, add 1/4 cup of chili powder. You want to cook this for a couple of seconds, but not too long because it does tend to burn. Now you're going to add your 2 cups of chicken broth. I just added the 2 cups of water and then added my 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon after I put in the water because it was just easier for me to do it that way. But if you already have chicken stock on hand, then you can just add the chicken stock. Now I'm adding a can of tomato paste. A 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of oregano, and 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. You're just going to want to mix this up until the tomato paste is blended in. My tomato paste was frozen, so it did take a little bit of time to mix it in. Now that the tomato paste is mixed in, you're just going to want to let that cook for about 10 minutes. So while we're letting that cook, I'm going to get our casserole prepared, and you're just going to want to start out by layering the pan with your corn tortillas. I like to rip up mine just because it is easier to scoop out after it's done. And I'm using a 9.5 by 13 inch pan. So once you have your pan lined with the corn tortillas, you're just going to put half of your chicken mixture right on top of the corn tortillas. I like to layer mine, but if you all prefer to just have a faster method, just put all of the mixture in instead of doing the layers. So just top that with cheese. And then pour the enchilada sauce right on top of everything. Now we're going to do one more layer on top of this, so you're just going to repeat the whole process. And I'm sorry for the blurry shot here. My camera was not wanting to focus, so that's why it ended up turning out blurry. So then just top it with more cheese and more enchilada sauce. And you just bake this at 350 for 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes now, and I am pulling it out of the oven. And that is literally it, guys. This is so easy to make. It's so good. It's gluten-free, and it definitely freezes very well, making it a super good make-ahead freezer meal. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we will see you in our next video. So be thankful and rejoice in the Lord. Bye, guys.
Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God.